Have you ever noticed that a classic author or an author from the past seems to have an uncanny knowledge of things that haven't happened yet? Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Rob. This is my mom, Karen. We are your hosts of Books, Banter, and Beyond. And today is a one that I love, and I think I kind of got you into this too. We're going to talk about classic writers and the possibility that they had some information prior to certain things happening. Now, just a caveat here, we're not talking necessarily anything supernatural,
Right.
but we're talking about things that actually ended up becoming true. And it's curious to wonder how or why they would have been writing about these things in a time when they didn't really need them or have a purpose
Freaky.
to it.
I think it's kind of freaky, actually.
It is. So before we go into these guys, the one person I always have to bring up is Da Vinci. And for those who don't remember, there's the Da Vinci Notebooks, which are a group of drawings from Leonardo da Vinci of things such as helicopters, of things such as submersibles, and even things that kind of resemble cars and airplanes, too.
Right. Right.
And the question to this day that many scientists and historians ask is not only where did he get the ideas, but why would somebody from the age he was in be drawing things that would serve no purpose for any other reason other than it wasn't a thing? You know, nobody was thinking about airplanes, nor would they probably know what one was. So, where would a guy, or why would a guy or woman draw something that isn't in the brain yet, basically? So, with that thought in mind, we're going to go over some authors and discuss that thought. So, this idea has gone through many books, and you'll probably recognize most of these titles because these are all things you have to read in school usually.
Right.
First up, we have authors such as Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, and Mary Shelley. Jules Verne, the famous author of one of the books 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. H.G. Wells, the guy who wrote War of the Worlds. And of course, Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein. Three books that, for all purposes, are just fun classics. But when you think about what's actually being done, you realize there's machines, there's things that weren't really, to do. So, for instance, in Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, he described advanced submarine technology. For those who haven't read the book, they cruise around in a giant submarine. And again, it's not so much that this is weird. Submarines are real. We obviously have invented them. But for a guy who, for all purposes, like I said, would have no need for a submarine, what is the idea of putting one in a book? Another one, War of the Worlds from H.G. Wells. Everybody remembers that one, thanks to,
Right.
what was his name with the radio show?
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and they talked about extraterrestrial life and advanced weaponry. Obviously, the robots had, lasers, and they had, giant moving robots. Again, not things that we necessarily use or have now, but it's science. You can make a laser, you can make a robot.
Right.
And then one of my favorites is actually Frankenstein. What Mary Shelley really actually was doing was the idea of anatomy and biology and learning about what happens when the body does die and how things like electricity are actually what moves your body. I don't know, for those who aren't aware, the brain is full of electrical synapses. So what
Right.
your body is making is electricity, right? So it's also it nowadays it's not so weird, right?
Right. Well, and I'm going to throw in another one.
Okay.
Nostradamus. Nostradamus.
So yeah.
And when you said submarine, and that's when I kind of went, okay. So Nostradamus, way back, all his writings and a lot of the things that he wrote have been translated because it was not in English. So they've been translated.
Right.
But they've been translated to make it sound like he actually had a premonition. He had a forethought that something was going to happen. A submarine, that an underwater thing would be go. He talks about all of this, and there are people that say, well, these are people that are blessed with the ability to see into the future. I don't know. Do you believe that, Rob?
So As you know, I study a lot of this stuff because I'm curious to know. And I was watching a show, and the brain is the one part of the body that some people call it the last untamed beast of the world because, as far as we know, we know how it works, we know what the brain is for,
Right.
but to this day, scientists will tell you they don't know how emotions work, they don't know how vision work, or foresight visions. They don't know how this stuff is. So you're right. For the purposes of just general knowledge, things like the brain are almost, as they say, we know more about outer space
Then
than
we
we
do.
do about our brain. So, and in terms of Nostradamus, it's similar to Da Vinci, right? People have said that he was given some sort of knowledge to draw, and whether or not what these people did directly relates to it, it's a little weird how almost exact the words were. And I don't know if you knew this, but the way they wrote, some of the letters actually translate to the letter it's supposed to be, but it's written differently. So for instance, I think S is a T, R is an L. So when they put that letter, you actually have to replace it with the real letter, and you actually get a word
Right.
that is the word you're looking for, and you go, "Whoa!"
And then there's a question: why did they do that? Right.
Right. So back to these the books that we're talking about. The physical, or the creative world of, for instance, submarines, robotics. It's, for me, it's more of a, there is no purpose other than pure fun to discuss, robots coming from the sky. Like it's an adventure, it's a
Right.
story.
Right.
But when you travel to our period now and you look back, you go, well, basically, they are teaching robotics, they're teaching biology, they're teaching how the body works, they're teaching
Right.
underwater, whatever. Now, my other favorite, bypassing technology, it's cultural and psychology. We have two authors that people love to hate because their books are way, people go, I don't ever want to touch this guy. But George Orwell, 1984, and Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World, both dive into the questions that you don't want to dive into, right?
Right.
They talk about surveillance, they talk about authoritarianism, and the role of others, technology, in your life as it is. And,
Right.
this is not a political show at
Right.
all,
Right.
but I
Right.
know we have discussed how these kind of books are very scary when you realize how the world works.
Operates. Right. Right. Exactly.
So I'll
Oh,
throw it
I'm
to you because I
depressed.
know I've talked about it, but I'll
I'm
throw it to you for a
totally
second.
depressed, Rob. I'm totally depressed now.
I'll throw it back to you for a second because I know I just talked for like 8 minutes straight. Um, so I mean, what time frame? Because I know you grew up in a different time frame than I did.
Yeah.
Is any of this similar, different? Like, do you feel the same way
I
I
feel
do? And
I feel exactly the same. I mean, I'm right now reading Eckhart Tolle, and I don't know if you know
okay,
who Eckhart Tolle is, and he talks about the mind, and he talks about that we confuse that we are our minds, and 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 that's, by the way, I do highlight and underline all that stuff because it's really technical. But the whole idea of this, that it's in our minds, and that we are not our minds, and what we think we are, and it's so fascinating. And in fact, maybe it is our minds that can create all of this, and we just don't know yet because we haven't evolved. Maybe we just haven't evolved enough. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, the same show I was watching about, and they're talking about the brain, is that there's so many things. There's people that have extra electricity in their body where they can move something
Kinetic, yeah, yeah,
with telekinesis. So I mean, it's a very strange idea, and just generally thinking, and it makes, I don't know about you, but it makes me kind of want to go back and read portions of this stuff
yeah,
because it's like H.G. Well, or is talking about robots coming down. Well, the only difference in that is they're not coming down. We're the ones building them here and allowing them to move around the building.
right,
Jules Verne is talking about exploring the ocean in a submarine. If you watch somebody like David Attenborough on BBC, and he does the Planet Earth shows, he's going down in these submarines to
yeah.
explore the ocean.
There's
So,
yeah, there's actually a show on television right now where they remove the from the oceans. They remove the waters,
yes, drain the
right?
oceans, and you get to,
Drain
yeah.
the ocean, drain. and you got to wonder, is that a direct correlation as it moved forward from past generations and what we can and cannot do? It's kind of like it unveils it for us, without us having to read a book. I think maybe that's what it's the purpose.
It always makes me think that all of this cool stuff that we think we just created isn't really new. It's actually old technology. It's just used more efficiently than it would have been in the 1800s. You know what I mean? Like
Let's go to Chariot of the Gods. Let's go to aliens coming from the sky, and that there was so much of this technology that the Mayan culture has disappeared. All of this stuff that they created, like we think I have obviously strong, like we think we can do it. No, clearly other past years, past centuries, past civilizations probably did some of this.
The best thing I ever heard somebody say on TV was, we obviously haven't given our ancestors enough credit,
Right.
because what they've written makes more sense than what some people write today.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on. Obviously, this is a whatever, but yeah, and I know some of the follow-up questions we had. One of the ones that I really loved was how much of the future was influenced by their own time. And I think you've answered it. I think I've answered it, but I think it's a lot of times when they write, they're writing about what's happening. We talked about Tolkien and how Lord of the Rings basically imitated World War I and II, and that's what he was writing about.
Right.
So it's no surprise that when you read a book, they're copying something that's happening because they're writing about what they see. So obviously these people, yes, are they seeing aliens coming down? No. Are they seeing things changing? Yes. And that change.
And I think that's what makes certain people brilliant and others average, like most of us, right? It's the brilliance that not everyone has, and they're able to see something that most of us can't, at least not in the time, and maybe future we will see it. Rob, you got all sorts of books in the your bookstore, Next Chapter bookstore.shop. They're gently used, great deals. Go grab a ton of books because you want to read, and you want to read something good and something interesting. Let us know what you think. Let us know, if you think that these authors knew something we didn't know. I don't know. As always, we love having you on the show, and we will see you next time on Books, Banter, and Beyond. Goodbye, everyone.